emerging technology and solutions for the future of humanity and really how it impacts people's lives. We have an amazing panel today to really have this conversation about how do we take governance and infrastructure and philanthropy and social impact and really use technology in service to humanity versus the opposite of what sometimes happens, humanity being led by technology. So I also want to introduce Miriam Azarm, who's founded the Clusters Partners, Clusters Innovation Partners, and who's made this possible. So you want to say a few words?
Yes, I'm just trying to get some of our...
They'll come.
They should come now. Larry, Fred, get everyone here.
Let's name and shame.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, it is. So thank you all for being here. I know a lot of you had just had many other things to do, so we're very honored to have you. And I'm not very used to speaking. And many of my friends are here, many new friends are here. Some of our great believers are here, people who believed in us. We just founded Closest Innovation Partners almost 3 months ago. And I'm just really excited that you're sharing this with us. And I'm not a technology person. I'm just someone who wants to do something good for the world, and so is Melinda. So we're trying to do this together. And we've got Damir here, who's been extremely effective in making this happen. Thank you, Damir. And I should be saying this at the end because I'm doing a thank you already. And we have Larry, we have Jeffrey, we have so many friends here, and Carol. So thank you for being here, and let's make this a success.
And you guys have no idea how hard it is to get Miriam up on the stage, so let's give her a round of applause. Okay, so I just wanted to get everyone in their seats. Thank you for coming, and I'm going to hand it off to Lily, who inspired this conversation as we've been talking about how do we really interject the voice of the people and the future of humanity across these topics that are happening in such a place like the World Economic Forum in Davos. So thank you, Lily, for being, and thank you, Anise, for having us.
Okay, so I am hoping that the next 60 minutes is going to be exciting, inspirational, stretch your brains a little bit. And if the folks up here don't get a little bit uncomfortable, I'm not doing my job. So I am here to join them as a panelist because I myself am involved in technology as well. But I thought of starting this in a little bit untraditional way. We can rattle our bios. You can probably Google all these names. But I really want to start setting the tone for what the title of this discussion is all about. So everyone is here for a reason. Because whatever emerging technology each and every one of you are working on or hoping to work on or have worked on in the past has had an impact in humanity. Sure, hopefully it makes an impact in the bottom line too, because we need money to do good, right? I think we can establish that. But with that title in mind, I'm gonna go starting with you, our fierce host. Thank you so much. Let's give Emphasis a hand. They are hosting us in a beautiful place with amazing food and amazing company. But I wanna know, in a one-liner, I just met you in an elevator. How are you and your technologies currently or in the past or in the future impacting humanity? Go.
So,
We need a mic. I know I'm the one with the Britney Spears mic here. This is a lot of fun.
we've just launched, as you can see on the left-hand side over there, we've just launched a lab which can quantify and visualize human empathy. The one big missing element in designing systems. When you normally design systems, you design systems for profit. You don't design systems.
Finance ministers here, they keep talking about PPPs, but they really need a killer app. You really need to think about a different way of doing this. So we looked at infrastructure and say, how do we have that impact? And there are two key things that really are the leverage points. One is technology. So you all know about renewable technologies, but believe me, with machine learning, IoT, AI, there's a lot coming down the strip. that will really disrupt infrastructure. And let me give you a, I'm taking a little bit longer, but
That was
it's
a
good
long
setup.
elevator. No, keep going. It's amazing what you're doing.
So let me
Go
give
ahead.
you an example. When I was growing up in Pakistan, it used to take about 10 to 15 years to get a fixed phone line in your house.
Oh my God.
And that's probably true for a lot of countries. Even today, it's not that far. So you put in the application, you wait, and you hope that the World Bank or Asian Development Bank would give a loan to your country, your city would be in it, your district would be in it, and in the distribution network, they will have your street, and you gotta pay one or two people and hope that your house is on the list, and voila, you have a house, you have a phone connection. Then came mobile phones, and it just blew that whole thing away. So all of a sudden you have Reliance versus AT&T versus Vodafone, what have you. Consumers are in the front making a decision. It just completely shattered the bureaucracy that was holding that. And the value that was released in telephony is why, if you go to developing countries, people pay a disproportionately large amount of their real income for phones. And you all would not be surprised to know the exact same thing is happening now in energy space, where distributed energy is doing the same thing. You don't need the national grid, you don't need the bureaucrats, you don't need the World Bank, you don't need that loan. So technologies are changing the way infrastructure is provided, and we have set up a fund that does both of those things. So let me tell you the other thing. The other thing is how infrastructure is financed. So if you wanted to provide energy and you are a power company, you want to expand, what do? You have to either issue a bond or you have to get a bank loan for a project financing, and the first thing they will ask for is a government guarantee, which automatically means 4 years, right? At least. So it's a cycle. That's the reason why there's not enough infrastructure. Even here I was noticing we need more infrastructure, to be honest. So we talk and we talk and we talk, but we haven't. And now with blockchains, I believe we have a third instrument. So we had equity, we had bonds, and now we have blockchains that allow you as a service provider to go directly to your customers and raise money, which is a lot more, could be and should be, a lot more smoother than a securitized bond would be typically. So we are looking at these two things and saying between how infrastructure is provided through new technology and with new instruments of how infrastructure is financed, we should now approach infrastructure differently. So we're setting up a private equity fund, and we are putting our money and our reputations where our mouth is. It's a tokenized fund. We're doing fundraise across the globe. It's companies based out of Singapore. We will do a full fundraise in Asia. We'll register with FCA, so we're looking at EU, and then of course Reg D, and go through the US process. There are two key investment platforms under the fund. One is pure equity in tech startups. So I used to do tech M&A back in the days. So we've built a whole pipeline of deal sourcing and technology advisors and so on, so we can find the right companies from Silicon Valley that are playing or building technologies to disrupt infrastructure markets, and helping them to expand in Asia and other emerging markets as well. And then the second part is there are a lot of infrastructure companies that are basically tired of the usual financing game and are looking at ICOs very seriously. So we will be managing people's money to help them invest in those infrastructure ICOs. And we believe we have a lot of domain knowledge between my partners and I. We probably have about 80 years. We know all the sectors, we know the governments, we know the ecosystem in emerging markets. So we hope that we will be able to provide legitimacy to the blockchain community, some gray hair, and some credibility in terms of if the deals come through and they have been due diligence by us, people can feel comfortable that these people actually know the sector, they know the domain, and they know the region. So that's what we're planning to do. So early days, just starting. We have some very serious people backing us already, and we believe that this is the future. And just to show that, it's tokenized fund, security tokens, and we will, put our reputations and money where our mouth is. I'll stop
That's
there.
good. Thank you. Lucas, Minefire. I love that name. So I can't wait to hear what is it that you're doing? How are you using technology to make an impact and make it grow and make it profitable and purposeful and profits, as I call it. Can't wait to hear about you. Tell us more.
Thank you, Lily, and thanks to Infosys and KIP for organizing this wonderful event. So yeah, my name is Lucas. I'm a co-founder of Minefire. I'll give you an elevator pitch, probably a little shorter than yours. Well, let me start with, I believe in technology. However, I do not really believe in disruptive technologies. I believe in enabling people, and what Minefire does is exactly that. It's enabling people. Minefire is not a product, Minefire is not a service. Minefire brings together the best talents in neuroscience, in AI-related disciplines to crack the brain code. The brain code is the underlying principle governing human intelligence. We hope to achieve true AI by finding out what the brain code is. We do not believe in algorithmic intelligence and algorithmic AI. We do not believe in deep learning. We do not believe in anything computational. We believe there is a principle governing intelligence. By having the principle governing intelligence, you can do good things. You can basically come up with a number of applications which are valid for all fields covered here on the stage, here in Davos, and all, insights might help to basically tackle the SDGs in the short term. Minefire is set up in missions, so we're going to launch the first mission in Davos here in May, so we gather around 100 talents across different fields. And the wonderful thing is we bring people out of their labs, we bring people out of their siloed companies and really enable them, inspire them, and work across different disciplines. And that's what Minefire is all about. We will keep going with our missions until we have some indication how the human brain actually works, and based on these understandings, we'll keep pushing and hopefully develop applications which do good for humanity.
That's great. So I can't help myself but to dig deeper. I'm gonna stick with you for a second. So we hear neuroscience, it sounds big, complicated, could mean a lot of things to a lot of people, or kind of decoding how the brain works, while at the same time acknowledging that you don't believe in artificial intelligence. So how are you bringing all these things together? So let's say all these brilliant minds, everyone is coming to your Davos mission. What happens? Give us a peek into the future. What happens inside that mission? So you can do all that cool stuff you just said.
Well, I'm not a techie. I'm an enabler. I have a background in diplomacy. I have my own company in New York where I'm based. I did research in South America, so I'm really only the enabler and bringing together the people. So what we do, we have different verticals during our missions, from robotics to biology, you name it. So the missions are led by leading scientists. So we have a AI board, we have a neuroscience board, a robotics board, and all these boards are led by leading scientists worldwide, and they influence and they inspire the talents which enables incentivation. So we came up with a token which is directly linked to future intellectual property, which makes IP directly tradable even before it's out there. Hence, the talents are getting paid in tokens, and they have a direct incentive to go out of their labs and do good.
So I want to make sure everybody got that. Imagine, and I'm distilling it because it's super cool. So you are the convener of this ultimate think tank, in a way, of the best and the brightest.
We just started.
I'm just doing it in a very simple way because I want to make it simple for those that are going to be watching it. But it's not just that. There is that tech component where you're betting on the best of the best, potentially coming up with IP that doesn't even exist yet, and everyone collaboratively owning it and plugging it into the chain.
Well,
into the block. Yeah?
correct.
Sort of?
We take the best out of blockchain technology. I've been involved in many ICOs in the last couple of years. I do not believe in tokens, in financial tokens. I'm not
Yeah.
a fan, but blockchain technology is a wonderful application, and if we use it, if we leverage it in the right way, we can do good things. And Minefire is trying to utilize blockchain technology
That's amazing.
to really get a step closer to true artificial
Yeah.
intelligence.
This is the first time, I don't know about you all here, but it's the first time that I hear an initiative like yours, Lucas, that is looking at the power of the block for harnessing the power of the brain. And that is very unique, so kudos to you. Okay, Damir, last but not least, you have your own mic, so tell us about Foresight Factory. What you're
So
doing
actually,
with
I'm
that.
wearing two hats here, and I represent two people here. So, but I'll nevertheless try to be half shorter. In any case, Foresight Factory is a data business, it's a data company. What we want to make sure, obviously, we track innovation coming from any place. As you know, these days, innovation can come from anywhere in the world and from any place. So not only universities, but all places where innovation can come from. And then we actually measure the possibility of adoption of that innovation, which is very important, that people really need certain innovation. There is a very well-known case of Steve Jobs investing in a company and losing about $90 million. Did you know how many people knew that Steve Jobs invested in a company and lost $90 million? That company is called Segway. So basically, Steve Jobs and a few other people, they have imagined that basically all of us will not walk anymore, that the way we will move around and go from street to street will be on Segways. However, even brilliant minds such as Steve Jobs can be wrong in those assumptions. So what we make sure is that actually people's opinions and preferences are heard in the process of innovation. Because one thing is everything that happens in the labs and universities, which is very exciting and which should be encouraged. But the another thing is the adoption of these innovations. So that's what Foresight Factory is all about, and we have collaborated with Infosys on several occasions on a great way. And obviously Infosys has a large global scale to outreach. I would encourage you to test the lab here. It's a super exciting thing.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so
I did it.
that's the Foresight Factory. The data business, the ledger state is actually a application of the ledger technologies into the governance, meaning into a country. It doesn't have to be necessarily a country, but in this case, we are implementing in Slovenia, which is an EU country with about 2 million citizens. So basically, we are in our background, we have a 4th generation blockchain running, which is called the hashgraph technology, which executes 300,000 transactions per second. If you know, that's many times faster than Ethereum or Bitcoin, which will be actually the future of blockchain because it resolves exactly the key problem. And then we are deploying it onto a country level to basically support citizens getting the services of the government faster and cheaper and more efficient. That's why the other person here was Tadej Slapnik, who is the state secretary.
He's here.
He's here.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's
So
give-
he was. If you look
Let's
at the
give him a
truck
hand.
behind,
You've made it.
he's here
Thank
with
you.
us. Great to see you. Welcome. He just arrived to Clusters, and then my driver took him here. But as you see, the traffic. That's Davos, I guess. So this is what happens when you have not a sufficient infrastructure, and that might be the best picture of where is the blockchain today. Basically, if you imagine Davos traffic,
The block is in the streets of Davos.
and now you imagine all the world's power getting into Davos traffic, experience will be shared by Mr. Tadej Slapnik. Welcome. So maybe we can just...
Yes. So thank you so much for being here. We have had a great first introduction and everyone and how they are currently working on emerging technologies or technologies that can help humanity. So you will bring a very unique perspective. How does that emerging of technology or emergence of technology look like from your seat? And what do you hope it does for countries and humanity?
Well, in Slovenia, we are trying to develop and to reach our goal to become a green digital country in Europe. and through that we have activity going from linear into circular economy, and doing that.
Try another mic. Maybe, Lucas, maybe your mic. Let's see if that one works better. Oh, there's another one there. Okay.
On that path,
There you go.
we face that we have a really, really strong startup blockchain community in Slovenia. We have a lot of knowledge, a lot of entrepreneurs, and yes, we joined the forces. On one side, government; on the other side, startup community, and together also with international partners, we are really trying to positionate our state as the most favorable blockchain startup country in Europe.
That's great. Thank you so much. And we heard about the 3Ps, the PPPs, translation, public-private partnerships is very important for us to get any of our work done. And in case you're wondering what Culture Intel is and why I'm here and delighted to be the moderator. So like all of you, I do believe that there is power in information and in data, and what we do is authentically mining the voice of the people. Now that sounds very big and bold, but all of you right now, many of you on your phones right now, are volunteering what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you evaluate when you're choosing everything from a leader in politics to a car, to a house, to healthcare. And what we have done is develop an algorithm that is able to scrape and mine everywhere there is an open common box digitally around the world. Not just Facebook and Twitter, but everywhere. And all of that has become one of the richest sources of unbiased, unsolicited opinion that comes from the voice of the people. And we are working with many corporations, now starting with some governments, so that we can map out what are the fears, what are the drivers, what are the barriers, what are really sentiment evaluators and why of people across genders, across ethnicities, and across countries. So that's what Culture Intel is. It's short for cultural intelligence, which is a term that I absolutely love. We are obsessed with human-centered strategies, people-driven this, people-driven that. Well, we gotta understand the people behind that word, people. And there is diversity, and there's differences in who we are across genders and countries, etc. And we hope to just be that source of intelligence for those that want to make better, faster decisions. So with that kind of work, I was just sharing with Kamran, I'm getting my little baby steps in the world of government, I guess. Have had a couple of meetings in the White House to see how this can work, but also recently started working as appointed by the mayor of the New York City to be part of the Technology Leadership Council to see how we can use New York potentially as a place to test and try some of these new things to help our citizens with the power of technology. So I guess that's what brings me here. And I know we could go on and on for a long time, and Melinda's there probably with the clock looking. But I do want to ask you a big, broad question that I know concerns a lot of us. So we hear the words and the buzzing on the fourth industrial revolution, right? Some people are excited about it, some people are fearful about it. Universities are kind of like puzzled by, gee, what do we do? How do we structure what we teach and how we teach it into the future? Even those of us that are the parents of young children are thinking, well, what do I bet on the arts or do I do the coding now that is probably going to be obsolete by the time they're 12? So how do you see that? This fourth industrial revolution, how do we really harness the power of what it means, or what does it even mean to you and the work that you do? So let's go with you, Mohammed.
So, look, I think, there are hundreds of examples. I don't want to talk about, how healthcare can adopt, the fourth industrial revolution, or how transport can adopt, there are hundreds of examples. But I think I want to stretch on one simple point. During the second and the third industrial revolution, we adopted technology with profit motive in our minds. So we created a massive wealth inequality. Yesterday, Oxfam reported, in 2017 alone, nearly 80% of the wealth that got generated went to 1% of the world.
Say that again. That is very powerful. Say that again.
People think, when I quote examples of the second and third industrial revolution, I'm talking about 1600s and 1800s. In 2017, 80% of the wealth that got created went to 1% of the world's population, right? The 50% of the poor got nothing, right? This is in 2017, right? And what Klaus Schwab in his book, Shaping the Fourth Industrial Revolution says is, look guys, I know all of you would adopt, the technologies, but just be mindful. How would you bake in humanity into all your projects, be it this massive, climate change program or this minuscule human resource transformation in your own company, right? So how do you bake in that? So that is the biggest challenge. So he asked that question in different ways. And my challenge is, how do I bring it into, how do I make it into a process? So he then goes on to say, look at design thinking. And design thinking as a process starts with human empathy, right? But the biggest problem with human empathy is there is no way to capture, quantify, and visualize human emotions, human empathy. And we're just getting started on it. So that is my first point. So first, bring humanity, human values. Do not just focus on ROI, TCO. All of us know that. How do we maximize human ambition, minimize human pain? Can we measure it, right? That's my first point. Second, adopt platform economy. So when I say go for inequality, address inequality, I don't mean, do Robin Hood, right? Don't take from the rich and give it to the poor. It's not through taxation, but it is through access, right? So it is about creating platforms that can connect the consumers of value and the producers of value without even a middleman like Uber, right? So, by just connecting the passengers and drivers, it's a $40-50 billion company, right? Now, how do we employ almost 4 of you talked about blockchain. How do you employ a simple blockchain technology to bring trust, transparency, and traceability into a simple Uber-like platform? Can somebody disrupt Uber, right? So that would be the second advice, bring a platform economy-based approach to designing and building systems. So the first is design thinking, the second is the platform economy, and the third, I would say, is a combination of zero touch. Can you create platforms that do not require a massive amount of people to do a lot of menial jobs? So zero touch combined with no bias. Even machine learning, the supervised machine learning has built-in bias. A lot of bias, right? Can you build platforms without bias? And that's my third one. So design thinking, platform economy, no bias. 3 things, but the focus of all 3 is a lifelong learning and humanity in the middle.
So I wanna dive deep on that. Anyone that feels like jumping in, feel free. So it feels like a little bit of a contradiction when you have technology and humanity sometimes right next to each other, when you're talking about empathy and the heart. Like, get into the heart before you get to the mind, right? So now that we're seeing the teenage generation that did grow up with all devices and all connectivity, which many of us did not, we are seeing that there is behavioral impact, even physiological impact into the way some of these kids are behaving, which is concerning. It's concerning because in a very ironic way, embracing the technology is having an impact in the brains, back to Mr. Lucas' work there, and not just that, but potentially how we emotionally even relate to each other. Is there a way to future-proof ourselves from our own selves as this continues to evolve and happen and grow, so we don't lose the humanity in this process of applying technology for humanity? Anyone has a take on that? Did we even anticipate about that? How do we become responsible technology enablers to make sure we don't, accidentally set up the next generations for a society that is just different and broken?
Let me try.
Go ahead, Lucas.
Well, first of all,
you're the brain guy, so you can decode it for us.
I'm not the brain guy, I enable brain guys.
There you go.
First of all, talking about the 4th industrial revolution, for me has a slightly egoistic connotation. It applies to us, to the rich world. It doesn't apply to 99% of the people, so we probably should ask ourselves, how can we enable, how can we achieve somehow industrial revolution for people in need. And it's quite, a privileged thought that we're in the middle of a fourth industrial revolution, which is very true. But back to the last question you asked, how can we make sure that it's not getting out of hand? I think, again, decentralized technologies are a key element to making sure that we stay on the right path. If we allow corporations, if we allow organizations to have centralized systems to gather so much power as we see today, it might turn out wrong. We give power away, so we really should, again, the design thinking approach, put humans first and make sure that, for instance, intellectual property related to AI, intellectual property related to any emerging technology is in good hands, is in a public foundation, accessible to each and everyone, and not just with Google, not just with Uber. It should and needs to be decentralized anytime soon, otherwise it's too late.
That's great. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Maybe I will pick up here. Not speaking just about decentralized, but distributed. Because I think distributed economy is the basics of the platforms that we were speaking. Of course, it's blockchain technology helps us to achieve it. And I would like to give you a concrete example. It was Uber. Okay, we have example of startup from Slovenia, Viberate. They are becoming Airbnb on the field of musicians. They are peer-to-peer distributed platform, and I think this is what we have now on the table. We have in fourth industrial revolution in generally two ways. First one is that we will make even more inequality, or to use the potentials of the blockchain technologies like in general, and to move towards the distributed economy.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Samir, maybe? Any thoughts on not losing our human out of the humanity?
Yeah, you see, I think we cannot also take human-to-human element out of the picture. So I think one of the most important jobs will be from in the future, near future, from the area of coaching and humans helping humans, and preparing each other for what's coming and what's here already. So from our education system up to the lifelong learning, first of all of us need to be responsible for ourselves to adopt and learn, because as we know from evolution, the ones who adopt are the ones who survive, not necessarily the smartest or biggest ones. But then also helping each other is a very, very important part of it, meaning to eliminate competitive part from our human relations. There is a good side of competitiveness, but then there's a bad side of it. So that's where emotional intelligence comes into play in the full swing. So actually in Foresight Factory, it's our new added value since 2017 is basically the whole emotional aspect of human reaction to innovation. So that's a very concrete way how we decided to go about it. But then I think each one of us should help someone to transition and help each other.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
Yes, Cameron?
I would just make three quick comments. One, I'm not sure I follow the revolution kind of analogy. To me, technology is a continuum. You do have waves. If you look at telecom, the first wave was with Bluetooth. It changed things a lot. The second one with Wi-Fi, and then there'll be another one. So there are two issues. One for the companies, the corporates, and second for the government. So for the corporates, what blockchains and things like that do is that they allow you to put in place now business models that have much bigger footprint. So you can actually involve communities who you would have never touched in the past in your first phase. Usually when you come up with products, you go to the rich people, the middle people, and then maybe it trickles down someday to the bottom of the pyramid or whatever terminology you want to use, the lower models. You now have the ability to, from day one, put in place a business model that has very low unit cost. You have a design structure that allows you to go pretty deep, and you set a pricing from day one that incorporates a much deeper portion of the society than you would otherwise. That, to me, is revolutionary. That is what the value to humanity that these technologies bring. Now, on the government side, the governments, all these guys who are creating traffic jams, they have a task in front of them, because they have to walk this very tense line between allowing independence, allowing innovation, and then being asked to police it as well. So in my old life, the advice we used to give on a lot of these policy issues is flexibility and social safety net and a variety of different public sector tools that we have learned over the years. It's just we don't execute them very well. And I think now, if they don't execute them well, they will have political problems in every country, whether it's developed or not, because the impact of these technologies is going pretty deep. And so if, just take cryptocurrency, we talked about it yesterday at an event. There are countries that are already moving forward with digital currencies because they don't want Bitcoin to become de facto currency of their country. And then there are countries that are basically closing their eyes and saying this thing will go away, this is all a fad, none of this is real. That's going to determine the pecking order of countries 5 years, 10 years from now. You don't have to believe in something, but if you see a wave, you still got to go with the wave and then figure out what is the comfort zone for your country, your people, given your political and economic situation at the time.
Right.
But if you just sit back and you just hope that it'll go away, you're going to create a lot of problems for yourself on a very microeconomic basis, for the politicians, and also for your people.
I actually love that point, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Secretary if you could chime in. But all of this is happening outside the walls of government. Innovation, the blog, cryptocurrencies, you name it. How can governments possibly stay up to speed to be ready to, first of all, not turn the back and miss out on the movement, but at the same time, on the other end, having to be very nimble and quick to pass policies in days instead of months or years? So from your perspective, how are you tackling that?
Well, first we need individuals in the government, starting from the Prime Minister. Slovenian one is the case that he's open, he's progressive, he allows the colleagues, me as a State Secretary in his cabinet office, that we can be open enough. This is first. Second, then you need a conversation, dialogue, and co-creation of the solutions together with the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the ones who are fast, who it's usually really a big obstacle to be fast enough as a government. And these two things we have in Slovenia. We have government, we have individuals in the government, we have a really, really strong community, startup community, a lot of knowledge, and we start to build trust together with each other. And with this, we really were able, it was 1 year and a half of working together, and it was in 2016 when we started, now we are in 2018, and in this 1 year and a half, we really achieved a lot of things. And now in February, for example, we will publish as a state all regulatory issues needed, how to issue ICO from Slovenia. All 4 regulatory bodies are implementing the things, and it could be done with that trust and this really co-creation partnership that we had together with entrepreneurs.
That's wonderful. So I think I want to leave room for questions so that you can all tap into the great brain power we have here. But I do want to close with just, if you were to describe in one word, one word. I'm emphasizing one word. What role does technology play for humanity? Go. One word. It shouldn't be that hard.
I think I'll go with platform.
Platform. Cameron.
I would go with client because I think we as businesses
client.
have to think about a lot more people as clients, not just recipients of aid or well wishes or prayers, but clients. If you think if corporates took the mentality of clients as a much deeper group, I think we'll be a different world.
Okay.
Just one small thing. So
They're already breaking the rule.
the
Go ahead.
the word platform is not technology. It's a place where consumers and producers meet to consume or produce something. So it is ultimately the word platform is humans, right? And where they get access, right?
Yep.
It's not technology.
Lucas, I guess I'll let you amend it. The one word and why. Okay.
All right. Enabler. Following
I guessed that one.
well,
Yes.
that was an easy one. I see, as always, humans are in the center. Technology is enabling humans, and so it's quite logical to me that technology is a slave of humanity, but not the other way around.
Love it. That made
Empowerment, a little
Yes.
bit stronger. This is indeed a unique time in the history where the individual becomes more important and more empowered than any kind of collective. So that's something to think about and think how to use the most of it.
Mr. Secretary.
I lost mine, enable, but I will say now crucial. Crucial because we really have opportunity. With that technology, we can really make distributed economy and involve almost all humanity in the process of distribution of the wealth in the world.
So the reason I did just that was because in a very simple exercise with these great minds here, we just defined what emerging technologies mean for the future of humanity. And this is what you said. You said a critical, enabling and empowering platform that serves all people as clients. And that's the definition that we have. That's what you did it. I'm just threading it. One more time. A critical, enabling and empowering platform where all people are served as clients. You just did it. You defined it. This was amazing. Thank you so much. Questions?
What's your one word?
My one word? They stole it already. Actually, Damir stole it. It's empowering. It's empowering for sure.
I would
Yes, sir. There's questions back there.
voice.
Ooh, yes. Well, then we'll amend it with a critical, enabling and empowering platform that acknowledges all people's voices and treats them as clients. Then you can add that. That will be my twist, I guess, my culture intel twist. All right, there is a question back there. We'll take questions for a few minutes.
Can you raise your hand if you have a
Yes.
question? Will you come up?
So the tiniest guy in the room, I believe. I have a question for Mr. Slapnik. I know that Slovenia is like, I think #1 now in actually cryptocurrencies and blockchain and all the ICOs. How did you manage to connect the whole startup society to work as one? Because you're a really small country, and how did you manage to work with them? Because it's a different world. And Damir, for you a question, because you are so involved in blockchain and your company is really working on that. Are you together thinking of doing something? Because I think Slovenia is a perfect example for something big. Thanks.
Well, we were, I think, first country who organized national blockchain meetup as a state. We invited all entrepreneurs, everybody from the crypto or blockchain technology startup world to join. And it was huge because 500 people emerged in the one really great space, and that's where we started. What we had there, it was that we already have guys from economy, from co-founded, from some contract projects, huge projects already succeed on the world market, and they were telling to us, to the government, listen to us. It was me as a state secretary, vice president of the government in the same room. Now we as a state, we really have an opportunity. We have really opportunity to do something together, and we decided to do it. It was a lot of course, conversation, concrete activities done, and it was then, I think, in October when we already organized European blockchain meetup together with the European Commission on a higher level. And we see now that it's the way that if the community of startups see that it's a government on the one side, if we see that we have potential, then it's win-win situation.
That's wonderful. Any other question? I think there was a... there's Dam.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
Just
Go
trying
ahead.
to answer the second part of the question. Obviously, Ledger State is an ecosystem of leading minds and companies who have concrete solutions for organizations and governments. So not dreaming, not thinking something could work, but oh my God. Okay, I'll speak more quiet.
The chair broke.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no more talking about technology.
Phil is standing and seating. That's good. That's good. Like an athlete in the field. That's right.
Yeah, literally. So in any case, only here in Davos, we have, my partner Nino is here, I think 5 or 6 meetings, active meetings on prime minister level. I have to say that when it comes to Slovenia, the conversation is really the most advanced in the sense of really sitting on a table with people who not necessarily maybe understand all the bits and pieces of technology, but who want to understand how can this be applied for the benefit of the citizens. I think that's a right attitude. When you have right attitude, everything else will not be a problem. I think next month there is a meeting where actually Prime Minister himself will be sitting with leading blockchain technologies. And then the month after, there's going to be a meeting of public involved into this conversation, all hosted by government. So that is really the rare proactive approach, not defensive approach, which even for the US, I have to say, unfortunately, New York State is very famous for a very defensive approach. And therefore, there are many functions you cannot do for New York State. When it comes to my blockchain work, I am more free and able to do things in the Europe or some countries than in the US. So in that sense, I think creating that environment is a huge competitive advantage, and now is the chance to position countries, no matter where you are, into the top of that new opportunity wave. And I think Slovenia is on a perfect way for that.
So I'm going to give you a challenge, especially since I'm in that tech leadership council of the people that are not letting you do what you want to do. Please package the case studies, the learnings, use each and every one of us as a vessel to take those back to our cities and our countries, because it's great that you're doing it. It's great that you're, of course, reaching within the, your colleagues in Europe, but I'm throwing that challenge back your way to broadcast it as much as you can. Maybe it goes to mute ears some places. Maybe some of us really want to receive it and be an ambassador for that message. So package those lessons, please. Please.
Get together.
All right. So I think we have a trip to New York pending over here. Okay.
We have 2 more questions.
Anything else?
We have
Yes.
2 more questions.
Hi, Sriram, founder of Kuza from Africa. This is for you, Mohammed. We work with some of the informal artisans and informal workers at the base of the pyramid. What we are trying to do is we are humanizing technology by giving access to them through some edge devices which are designed to work in off-grid areas. By the way, we have 4 million people on the platform. Now, I want to pick what you said on the producer and the consumer. We are seeing that the same people who are consumers are also producers in different contexts. So we are trying to define a new currency which is not cryptocurrency, but a currency like, for example, a Uber driver who's got a rating of 4.6 and above today gets a bank loan in Kenya without a question being asked. That's a currency. So what are some of the possible currencies that you guys can think of which can be leveraged to humanize technology?
See, I think, Mr. Slapstick actually, Mr. Slapnik, he talked about Vibrate from Slovenia. It's a startup from Slovenia, right? Yeah. So it's basically what? It's a platform. It's a platform that's connecting today 150,000 musicians, right? Now, if you look at that, they've got pretty much all ticks. They're giving access to, they have planned to onboard more than 1 million musicians from all over the world. They plan to keep a currency, to all the people to consume music, to be able to, like almost like a marketplace. So there is a platform tick, there is a marketplace tick, there is a currency tick, and the most important tick, which is the humanity bit, which is they give access in that marketplace to those million people who produce music, and then to the maybe 1 billion people who wants to consume that music, right? See, I think I would not really, go deep into what kind of different currencies, and so we just launched a very similar platform, just in a nearby city here in Zurich, after the last Davos. It is my biggest learning. It's doing really well. My biggest learning is don't worry about currencies and those complications. Speed is the only currency that you should be worried about. The faster, we took 24 weeks from Davos to launch in Zurich. And I think, speed has been the biggest thing. We are now thinking about currency. We are now thinking about machine learning. We are now thinking about blockchaining credentials, experience and so on. But first we thought about speed and minimum viable product, put it out in the market and let it, teach you whether you need currency or whether you need, something else.
Fantastic. Did you have something else?
I was gonna chime in. Sorry, because your question took me somewhere completely different. This is why there's power of diversity in the room. Because what I heard in a way, and let me take a step back, a very basic kind of like economic and anthropological view. Currency at the end of the day is the perceived value of something that I can exchange for something else. Now, we have turned it into a coin monetized financial definition of it. But what I heard you say is, how can you start assigning and elevating value of other things that people are willing to pay for and exchange for because they see value on one end and you can serve the value for the other in another. So I guess the challenge for any of us in technology here, for those of you working in the blockchain space, would be how do you add some of those human, emotional, and value-based factors that are beyond currency and dollars and cents that somebody is willing to pay for?
Which can act as a value unit to eliminate the barriers that we are talking about.
That's where you took me. So I am willing to maybe pay a little bit more at that, I'll give you the ladies example, at that hair salon, where besides just sitting there, I'm having a great conversation with this lady that now it's my friend. Or there's other million other ways of the human factor of value-based pricing that I think gets it into the emotional, like how do you measure it and we do the 5-star rating and maybe that's a start. But I think you just open Pandora's box and getting us thinking differently about what a currency really means and could mean into the future. Anyway,
Beautiful.
But you took me there.
Great. So
Yeah.
one more question.
Final question.
Hi, my name is Wolf. I represent the Repute platform as the CEO. My question is for Kamran. We talked about it yesterday. So Infotech is a huge facilitator in pushing crypto forward in ways that I am very enthusiastic about. Can you give us a bit of a roadmap, if you want, into the future? What infrastructure projects do you see coming forward with government support that best can integrate crypto solutions? it's a little tricky, I know, we don't know what the future holds, but I would love to hear more. And I'm not completely altruistic about this question. So.
Sure. Look, the simplest examples are already out there. You have the company out of Australia. What is it called? I'm sorry, I'm skipping out. Power, the one that Branson is backing. It's Power Bridge or something like that. There are a number of companies
What do they
that
do?
are already out. They're basically doing blockchains for energy distribution.
Okay.
Yeah, and so there are a number of companies that are already out there that are preparing ICOs. You will see these coming to the market very, very soon. What we are providing is an ability to validate those tokens, not just to say what's under the hood, are these properly prepared, will they actually work in the infra market? Because once you tokenize, it's not just a matter of the top end of how money is monetized, it also will have impact on operations. So how will you bill people? How will the money be collected? How would it move around? How do you report it? How do you deal with government regulations at the operation level? So those are the kinds of things that we will validate, and also the value of the token, so that investors, not just our investors, but other investors will have some sense that if Infratech is buying a deal, an ICO, you would want to know that at least it's been looked after by somebody who knows infrastructure, and that somebody who knows the government and who knows the government's ecosystem. And then at some level, there will be a pricing issue. So if we're not buying something at a particular price, would like to think that that's going to send a message to the rest of the investors that perhaps it's too richly priced. But this is going to, what you are referring to is a key trend. And it is a trend that is going to upend the way we finance infrastructure, we hope.
So I just add just one small point. I don't know whether this would come under infrastructure. We see a lot of land registry getting blockchain, hundreds of examples. And I think the next immediate thing, once you have done that land registry for your country, I think using that as a token to do maybe a mortgage, or some kind of a thing, could be an immediate next one, and potentially move to coining your produce, right? When you're seeding, you could get some coins. When it is ready to ship, you could have a different value, and when it is at the end, you could be selling your soyas and rice and coffee, for something in the secondary markets. So I think instead of looking at some kind of a blue sky thinking, because it has already started in land registry, the next step could be mortgage, the next step could be produce, and send, go on like that.
I just remember the name, it's called Power Grid, so you can look it up. I usually wouldn't name companies, but we are not investing in it yet, so I feel safe in doing that, and they are all over Davos today. But there are a variety of things. So, there are water tokens that are coming out. There are people converting pay-as-you-go energy through tokens. There are going to be, at some point, you will have tokenized municipal bonds. I guarantee you, in my lifetime, you will see that very, very quickly. And it will have transparency, and it'll have accountability, because a city that issues a tokenized municipal bond will have to answer to people, like, where did you use that money, and how did you account for it, and how much of it went to overhead, and how much of it went to projects. All that stuff right now doesn't go. Nobody knows how cities use money.
Guys, I want to interject. Just because this happened yesterday, we started having these conversations.
All right.
And it took us 3 hours, and we were still having a conversation. And these guys have done such an amazing job of setting up this conversation, so we continue to have this conversation. So I apologize for being the parent stepping in, but I really want to thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
For facilitating this conversation, because when we decided to have this conversation, I couldn't imagine two better people to come.
Oh, we already have
one
projects
another.
in mind. Thank you very much.
So can we all just give Lily a round of applause?
Thank you.
Can we just go one by one? And thank each of you for being here.
Yes.
Honestly.
And I don't want to let them come off the stage. We gotta capture this moment. And please don't forget, emerging technologies for humanity are critical, enabling, and empowering platforms that acknowledge all people as clients.
For the future of humanity.
Definition of the day.
For the future of
The
humanity.
future of humanity.
Fantastic.
All right, let's
Thank
take
you,
a
guys.
picture with everyone. Thank you so much, everybody. This was great.